we have to give you that one. So, but there might be a yeah, right. Then you just really move about, right? Because then every time you plug the service, you just ask you which feedback.
Okay, everybody start getting your seats,
All right. We'll tell our needs here. Thank you. That was a great idea.
Everybody in your seats. This team is starting in 2 minutes. Okay, don't forget to turn off your phones again after lunch. And turn off your Wi-Fi so people getting Wi-Fi in, whatever, there's more Wi-Fi playing. You can tell that's not my thing. I just know they need more power for the Wi-Fi and we take it up, that's all I know. So, good. Okay, well this team is called Journey to the City. And just by that title, you can tell that it's connection to a previous one that you heard, like they'll overlap each other. My favorite coach coached this team, Barry. A little partial to that coach. So anyway, they're going to take it from here. Journey to the City.
Well, hey, I wanted to start off just by saying thank you to Cruise City as our sponsor, but particularly Dave and Lisa with City Church Movements within Cruise City. And then, of course, our Honorable Barry there. We have loved and cherished our coaching moments. I feel like he's become our dad. He did buy us ice cream. But I want to introduce our team. This is Kai Gibbons. This is Bob Fleetwood, T. Lee, Nate Krupke. And then my name is Tom Pham. But just as we're starting ours, I would love to set it up as we recognize that unless the Lord builds the house, the laborers are going to build it in vain. We know that. And I want to set up this time just as part of even the vision. We want to ask the Lord to engage with us, but we also want you to ask the Lord to engage with us with this project. And so would you just bow your heads and agree with us? Lord, we recognize that this project is a work of your hand and a work of your heart. And we recognize that we need you to lead us and direct us as an organization, particularly Cruise City. And we want to pray for the graduates that will be sent to the world in literally every city in America. Lord, thank you that they're prepared and well-equipped from the campus. We're praying that they would run to the cities, excited about the mission, excited to get plugged in and be journeyed alongside many different movements. Thank you for the way that you positioned Cruise City to be a part of that. Thank you for the work that you're going to do. Thank you for the ways that you positioned us and allowed us as Cruise City to be able to engage them at a critical juncture as they enter these major cities, sometimes not knowing what they're going to do with their lives. And I just pray that you would see every graduate connected, walking passionately, excited about the mission, thinking about the needs of the city, and raising their hand to be a part of everything that we want, that you've asked them and called them to be a part of. Lord, we love you, praise you in Christ's name. Amen. Like as I think about imagining the cities, I just imagine, could you imagine that the cities of America be loaded with every graduate? That as they graduate from our college campus, I work in the campus ministry, but could you imagine that every single student who graduates would be running, literally running with anticipation to go to the city? But not running to say, I'm going to make $1 zillion, but running with this vision and direction and hope, where we would load these cities with well-prepared, well-equipped, and people ready to engage the needs of the city. And I know that the numbers right now are low, but could you imagine someday every? Like we talk about that in Crew, that's what captured me to come on staff 15 years ago. But we see that we hear the word every, and sometimes I think even in this room, we don't necessarily believe that. But could you imagine, just for a second with us, that every graduate, maybe not even just Crew, but InterVarsity or other organizations would look at Crew City and say, they are a great agency that is plugging every graduate that comes along into whatever city, and they're going to help us fulfill the Great Commission. You know, as I think of Tim Keller, New York City, many of you are familiar with, obviously, Tim Keller in this room, but he has a campaign called The Rise. And right now, New York City is about 5% of people involved in good evangelical churches. But he believes that a tipping point is 15%. And that's what we want. We want every graduate to be able to be in these cities, loaded, prepared, ready to go, to be a part of the tipping point in cities. I've known Shana for a very long time. I have dreamt about the city of Seattle for a very long time. Seattle is always known as one of the least church cities in America. And I have dreamt that the headlines of the Seattle Times would someday say, Seattle, one of the most church cities in America. And you'd hear stories and headlines saying, there's incredible hope amongst the homeless because of this gospel movement, all these movements in the city of Seattle. And I do picture that every city in the United States will be loaded with students that graduate from the campus with Crew, journeying to the city, connecting with many different movements like Crew City, City Church movements, Gospel Center movements, movements that would literally radically change the city and turn it completely upside down. I think of collaborating work. I think of like nonprofits and for-profits and faith-based and non-faith-based and parachurch organizations and good, healthy churches collaborating for the health of the city. Knowing that the reality of non-Christian organizations saying, I don't want to be a part of the gospel movement, but I want to be a part of that because you're changing that, whatever that is, those epidemic problems within the city. And then as a result of that, our relationships as Christians, we can say, hey, let's influence that organization. So then we would hear stories of people coming to faith, and the news would travel fast. And we would hear highlight stories all the time of people coming to faith. And as a result of it, guys like Jeff Bezos at Amazon in Seattle, his life has changed. And then the internal organs of Amazon would change. And then as a result of that, other organizations would change. Because half of the businesses that Amazon sends to are small businesses. So you think of the practices within organizations changes as a result of people being sent to the city, radically walking with Jesus, full of faith, engaging them with the gospel, but in creative ways. And then I think of the reality of being able to receive this Crew City. Graduates who are well prepared, but are passionate. Like I said, I just like the imagery of running to the city with vision and direction and a sense of hope, and then knowing where they're going to land. Not just what city, but with whom, with what organization. And I think Crew City is positioned in a great place with all of the partnering organizations. We want to partner really well to be able to say, hey, what do you want to do? We can get you there. That's what we want to do. I was just speaking last Tuesday to a little over 50 recent grads in Seattle, all connected in different churches. It felt like a church, actually, because they're all 22 to 30. Context is two students that I've worked with 5-6 years ago said, hey, we need to get something started. So they started as a group of men, like 5 or 6 guys, and now there's every other Tuesday, more than 50 get in this 2-car garage in Seattle. It was only like 55 degrees this last Tuesday. And they're talking about discipleship and mentoring. And I asked the question at the end of 45 minutes, I said, how many of you would want to be mentored or discipleship in your spiritual journey right now in the city of Seattle? Not a single hand was down. Every single hand was up. That's the needs of our grads. They want to be plugged into community. Research has shown they need to be plugged into a community that's gospel-centered, but wants to have great purpose, not just another exciting group, because they can get tons of exciting groups in the city of Seattle. But they need life-changing groups. Our data also says that grads have little to no knowledge of Crew City. I mean, our campus staff, 56%, don't really know what Crew City does. 77% of our grads have little to no knowledge of Cru City. So we need to make some changes, clearly. Our research is clear. And as we even surveyed a student, this was probably the thing that hit me the most and was most tragic, was a quote from a student from Western Kentucky named Silas. I'm going to just read it to you. Never heard of it, Cru City. I think Cru should take a good look at how they stay in contact with recent grads. I graduated and didn't hear from anyone. Most of the guys in my small group and my small group leader don't even keep in touch with one another. There was no accountability post-graduation, which, this is tragic, made me realize how fake a lot of those relationships with my brother in Christ were. How fake those relationships were. I think that's painful. I think it's painful for the organization of Cru at large. But I think it's painful that we didn't receive him and walk alongside him and journey alongside him. And so that he'd be a part of the fulfillment of the Great Commission. But here's the good news. He is a part of a good local church. But we would hope to be able to come alongside every graduate and be able to journey alongside him. That's our hope. And as we transition, I want you to hear from Maggie, a young woman that we've journeyed alongside, and to hear her relationship with Christ. And you're going to hear it through the voice of Kai. And throughout the presentation, you're going to hear snippets of Maggie's story.
Hi, I'm Maggie Stancliffe. I came to Christ through the ministry of Cru High School when I was 16 years old. I went off to college, and obviously I looked to get involved with Cru Campus. During my 4 years on campus, I was discipled, I led Bible studies, I went on 2 summer missions, and was equipped to walk on mission for a lifetime. As I was nearing my transition of graduation, God was calling me to teach. My friends from summer mission encouraged me to move to Raleigh. I knew that I'd have great community there, and there were a bunch of great churches. Once I moved, it was great having that pre-established community. But I soon realized that I didn't have, that life in the city was very different. I did get involved in a great church and had a good job, but I didn't have any discipleship opportunities nor opportunities to use my Cru leadership experiences. Being involved in Cru High School and campus for the last 6 years has prepared me well. And I'm so thankful for my time at Cru. I guess it's now up to me to figure out how God is leading me from here.
I believe that Cru is on the cusp. I believe that Cru is on the cusp of being able to make sure that every Cent graduate can enter into the city and land as a landed laborer. I believe that we will be able to, if we can follow through and see our solutions come to fruition, to see every Cent graduate be journeyed with as they leave the campus, as they enter into the city, as they look for healthy churches, they engage with gospel communities, city gospel movements, and the city teams. I believe that if we can get to this, then we will be able to stand beside every Cent graduate and see them live their life on mission to see the Great Commission fulfilled. I believe that we can encourage and equip and empower local churches, local communities with the experiences and the discipleship that the students have received while on campus. And I believe that every student will be able to, as they leave campus, continue to live win, build, sin in whatever context that we see. So as we talk about our solutions today, I just want to post up this timeline, and it is available in the executive summary. And in this, our solutions are filtered throughout. And so as we go through our solutions, you'll see how they interact with the different pieces of our journey that we want to see the Cent graduates go down. So as a team, we landed on 5 key solutions to implement to see this problem of making sure that our Cent graduates are walked with and journeyed with as they leave the campus and enter into the city. Our 5 key solutions kind of are hinged upon the first one, which is that Cru City really needs to go through and clarify communication, their strategy for communication to build trust. As we got into our research, we realized that one thing stood out, that campus staff, specifically, we did surveys and interviews with campus staff, city staff, and SINT graduates. But campus staff in particular, only 56% of them were able to understand or know what the city, the Cru City's purpose, mission, and vision was. And if you take that down a step, as students interacted with those campus staff, then students had even less idea. 77% of them said that they had little to no idea of what Cru City was. And so as we think about communication, as we think about the opportunity that exists to help build channels for city staff to enter in with campus staff and help them to understand what it is that city desires to see accomplished, how city has created relationships and partnerships, they've created these city gospel movements, they're united with local churches in the city context. How can we express that to the students through campus staff so that students know that Cru as an organization continues to journey with them through their transition process? And so it's not necessarily about marketing and coming up with flashy designs, although that can be helpful. But the core of the communication strategy is helping to build trust. And so part of our research showed that campus staff had some fears or apprehensions about what Cru City does. And that's in part due to the organizational jargon that city can use as they talk about themselves. We understand that city is a complex and diverse ministry, but it's so much more than that. It really has the ability to operate like a missional agency or a missional network that helps connect students to what they're called to as their SINT graduates. It enables them to see what it is that they can do to live out the Great Commission in the city. And as we interviewed Wes Lane, there was a comment that he made that when SINT graduates live on mission, evil things in the city will die. And so that is just a powerful statement to make, and I believe it's true. So as we looked back across the organization of Cru City, we were trying to find some bright spots for where communication and relationship existed. And so Raleigh, North Carolina, and the Raleigh city team, because of the years of interacting with campus, being on campus staff as well as high school, have long-standing relationships that have allowed them to continue those opportunities to connect with students. And so as we think about communication, as we think about relationship, we wanted to highlight what the work that the Raleigh city team has done in connecting to what the SINT graduates can experience. So our 3 steps to see this solution come to fruition are first and foremost that there needs to be a focus group formed between campus staff, city staff, and SINT graduates to clarify communication. What is it that will help communicate what it is that city is doing, and how can campus and the students while they're still on campus understand that and see that defined. The next piece is to take that marketing strategy, those new clarified communications, and update the Cru.org community page with that messaging and our tools that we'll talk about later. And then the third is to form a working group between campus and city executive teams to understand how can we be collaborative in this process and really to see the benefit of the SINT graduate as they look to continue their life on mission. We'll hear from Maggie again and then Nate.
Man, if the messaging of Cru City was woven into the framework of what people experience on campus, grads could more confidently make the transition into life in the city by having the option of getting involved. If I personally would have known about Cru City like I did Cru Campus back in my transition for high school, I would have benefited from the discipleship that Cru City offers because of how hard the transition was.
So Bob shared kind of the overarching, when we think about it as like the hub issue that we needed to tackle was this communication problem that was resulting, we believe, based on our data, in a lack of trust. But we wanted to add a relational component. As we saw what the data was pointing to, we've had several tools, I think we were alluded to earlier today even, where we've done a fair job of trying to connect people to what's next. But that relational piece seemed, in our eyes, what was really missing. And so we wanted to create this effective process. You can see this is data that we collected in our survey of 300 graduates, roughly 300 graduates, and they all, nearly 2/3 to 3/4 of them indicated they really needed help connecting. So you can see that 77% to mentoring and discipleship, like Tom alluded to a little bit ago, but also 70% to like-minded believers even, and 60% to churches, that they would really welcome somebody helping them with that. So we asked them several questions based on this data. It's like, what if someone were there, available to journey with them? You could provide coaching, advice, relational connections, and personal connections to churches, gospel, city movements, and city teams. And so as we thought through that, what came to us in our research, and we put together this picture. We wanted to share this with you partly to honor the staff kid that helped us write this out. She did a great job. But it really illustrates what we looked at in our research throughout this process, that as we've talked about bridges and pipelines, this relational component of a ferry, taking people across a transitional period, felt like this is the place where we could really intersect graduates' lives in a meaningful way to help them land well in that next phase. What that would look like is starting in some model cities that get worked out in the executive team working group that got alluded to just a second ago, is deciding where would we start? What would be some model cities that we could utilize this concept where there's good collaboration between city and campus, that we could start to test this and see if it works. It would have to begin, these relationships would have to begin before graduation so that there was relational capital built with the students as they graduate. And to think about that if this is a personalized, individualized process, that different needs based on different graduates as they leave could be met much clearer. One bright spot that we wanted to highlight is in Portland, where Josh Chen is working in dual roles, one with campus and one with city. And this, what he and his wife Wendy are working, the way they're able to work in Portland, especially with their relationships with Epic, is that they've built relationship where they can connect with these students before they graduate, enabling them to help connect to missional communities and win, build, send opportunities in Portland after they graduate. This is what Josh said. So I like to tell people, I like to think of my two roles as one. I want to help people live out their faith in high school, college, and the workplace. I'm passionate to help college students live by faith for their lifetime. So you think about somebody living this out, what we're recommending is that we form liaisons or a team of liaisons in the city that could live out and operate as much as Josh is illustrating in his life. So the first three steps would be to gather a campus and city executive level working group to talk through how campus and city relate and identify these possible model cities. The second would be to create this liaison role, or at least a CMO that city staff could fulfill. And then do ongoing research with key campus staff to gain further understanding what are the felt needs. So again, we're going to hear from Maggie, and then T's going to help us hear about the next opportunity.
Man, I love this idea of someone who's an expert from Crew City to meet with juniors and seniors to help equip, prepare, and give expectations for them in their transition. If someone had been able to relationally connect me to someone in Crew City, that would have been really helpful.
All right, so a quick survey. If you could raise your hand if you recognize this button. That's great. That's almost 100% of you guys. I actually used this button the other day. And I love, as an Amazon customer, that I get to use this button. And it's quick, it's easy, and you get what you want delivered to your doorstep in 2 days. So what if Crew had a one-click system like Amazon that could deliver sent graduates to the doorsteps of Crew staff in a major city like DC, Denver, or Portland? So we recommend as a team that Crew City designs a one-click system to easily capture current Crew campus students' contact information that would be then utilized in connecting that sent graduate to a city staff person within 24 to 48 hours. Building upon our previous solutions, this one-click connection portal would establish an immediate contact point and relational handoff through an easy-to-use tool like Amazon's one-click button. We want to highlight 2 websites built by the Cru City, New York team. Just looking at these home pages, a SENT graduate can easily connect to Cru City staff and missional opportunities around New York. So we recommend expanding upon the work that has already been done. A connection portal like this would connect even more SENT graduates to major cities and city staff. So picture this. When a SENT graduate clicks on a connect button, they receive a ticket onto that ferry boat that we showed earlier that's headed to the city God has called them. So they click it and they get a ticket. So our recommended next steps are 1, update the Cru.org city page with a clear way for SENT graduates to connect. Cru City can keep this page updated and commit to connecting with every user within 24 to 48 hours of receiving that SENT graduate's contact information. Second, Cru City would work with Cru Campus to implement this city connection portal. Cru City can create a working group with campus and SENT graduates to start. Now we're going to hear again from Maggie and then Tom.
Being able to easily click and identify churches and communities and community waiting for me is a really cool idea. Having moved to a new city, it would have been great knowing that there was a vibrant community of SENT graduates waiting for me.
Our 4th solution is pretty simple, it's really practical, engaging through winter conference. The reality is we've all experienced that. And so we just wanted to be able to be a place where Cru City can bend over backwards and come alongside campus and serve in kind of a high capacity, really leveraged, kind of a very hard, difficult time for campus staff to be able to prepare some of these things because it takes a lot of work. And so how do we do that so we can build trust, but also be able to partner with the campus staff and students to make life a little easier for them? Obviously, building trust is key. And then also it allows us to, over time, leverage the winter conference to be able to have a platform to be able to share our vision with clarity. And in the long run, be able to do this consistently over a period of 4 or 5 years of a student's life so that they have heard clearly the vision and direction of Cru City and where they're going and how they can get plugged in the moment they leave. So with that, we know that all the data research shows and reveals that there's some confusion there. And I think what it also does is it takes the load a little bit from campus staff. From our surveys, one of the concerns of working with Cru City was, well, it might be a little more work for us. Well, this would eliminate some work. For example, junior, senior breakfasts that we'd be able to help put on. So we bring our own staff into it to be able to put those on. You wouldn't have to, as campus staff, do that. The day of outreach is a beast. It is a lot of work with partners and working with churches and parachurch organizations throughout a city, for example, like Portland, to be able to do a major outreach. It's just a lot of work for campus staff. And I know that leading a team in Seattle, my team is exhausted for, I can't tell you exactly how long, but a long time after the winter conference. And so I give them time off just to recoup from that. And I think what that does is then it allows campus staff to be less engaged in some of the detail and kind of the busy work where city can utilize all their resources, connections, churches to be able to help put things on. And I think what that does in the long run wins as an organization with partnership. So that's really big and key. And I think through our interviews, we just sense that there's an air of like work, like there's a lot of work, and we don't want to overload our staff. But what we're saying, campus staff, so what we're saying is, how do we simply come alongside and serve? I am absolutely convinced that if city wins, campus ultimately wins. But if campus, and for campus to win, city needs to win. I think it has to be a win-win. You can win well on campus, but if we recognize statistics, or if this data is true, then maybe what we're doing on campus, like myself, is not translating post-college. We're not really winning. I think it takes the whole of the organization to win. And so as a result of this, I see the ripple effects for the next 40, 50 years. So as a result of that, Athletes in Action wins, Family Life wins, high school ministry wins, because these people who are thriving in their relationship for the next 40, 50 years are going to send children and grandchildren back to the campus and saying, please plug in to high school ministry, through high school, Family Life, I mean, as they're getting older. just all these organizations that Cru represents. One of the bright spots is with Dave, with Kansas City Cru team, partnering with Denver Winter Conference. I mean, the reality is they've come alongside and just bent over backwards to serve and care for the Winter Conference there. And so they've done things like the Day of Outreach. He's been a speaker there. They've done seminars and junior and senior breakfasts. And as a result of that, the sentiment is mutual. And so they'll platform his Kansas City summer mission in the city for the city. And so it's a win-win relationship when we work together really well. And so, like I said, the benefits are easy. And so as a result of it, you think about all the winter conferences throughout every year, all these students are going to be able to hear a clear direction of where eventually Cru City wants to go and is going. And so then this transition is seamless from the campus to the city. So our next 3 steps is just sending city staff to winter conferences to volunteer serve campus staff and students. Even if it's simple as setting up chairs, I think we just need to go there. Identify key winter conference partnering opportunities based on model cities of where the winter conference is located, and then working with the existing relationships. And then identify the right stories to share and speakers, and if there's the right seminar speakers for and the breakouts. And then hopefully for years to come, this is a mutually beneficial relationship. You'll hear from Maggie and then Nate.
Man, I think this is a no-brainer. I went to a winter conference for 4 years as a student. I think Cru City staff have so much to offer to the juniors and seniors as they think about their transition.
All right, briefly, we have one last solution piece. And as you've seen this, a lot of these solutions after our first one really are about how do we partner well internally? How do we serve one another with the Cent graduates and their success in life really in mind? So the last one is really how do we help set them up well? And thinking through what do we do to equip and encourage these folks to know when they step into the city how to engage mission, church, the gospel for the whole city. How do we set them up well with partners and resources and experiences that will help them? You can look at these numbers quickly. Yeah, we do have a lot of our students. We're succeeding in getting them connected to church, but you can see they drop in their level of contribution. And finally, the one that was startling to me is that only half of them are being invested in spiritually. That's what they reported. And it's not much higher of those that are seeking opportunities to invest in others. And so we're seeing that there is a disconnect somewhere. So how could we set them up well? One of the places that we realized that could happen, there's a variety of resources we're already creating as Cru, and identify and leverage those would be great. But again, one of our bright spots that we identified was the city leadership experience in Kansas City is a place where students and others get 8 to 10 weeks of being invested in to have a better perspective, a worldview, and a theology of how do I tackle living in the city as a believer that wants to live missionally and see the kingdom grow. So, the next 3 steps that we recommend on this is form a working group of city church movements, campus, and the theological guild to build out resources that speak to God's heart for the local church and missional opportunities. And then task this group with helping to identify what Cent graduates bring to churches and partners. So the second piece of this is helping our partners receive them. And so creating a kit even is something we recommended to city church movements in particular to help these receivers know who are our graduates and what do they bring. And then lastly, to identify, adjust, and brand those existing resources to best leverage them for the benefit of our graduates. So we'll hear from Maggie.
If I would have felt better equipped to step into my church leadership using my Cru experiences, and equipped to specifically using my teaching degree for mission with a better theology of work, I would have more confidently entered into the city after my graduation.
All right, so overall, these are our first 3 recommendations to implement this whole process. One would be to inform the communication strategy, as we've talked about. The second would be to form an executive level working group between campus and city to really figure out how we can work well together for the graduates' benefit. And the third would be for us to send city staff to the winter conference to be available to assist in any way possible to build some relationship and some connection. So we'll hear from Maggie one last time.
City was doing and to see what the Lord would do in my life through Cru City, being equipped to share the gospel in my workplace, being discipled and continuing to walk in and grow in my relationship with Christ. And so I just wish that every post-grad would live as a SENT graduate, and that as a result of what Cruise City is doing, that they would be a part of growing God's kingdom wherever they're living.
So I hope you learned through Maggie's experience a little bit about what we've experienced in our research. For me personally in this process, I feel like one of the biggest areas that I grew in was the understanding of what boundaries look like as a leader, and stepping into the right things and being willing to say no to things that I could do or want to do, even good things like helping others, if it's really not going to allow me to fully engage the few things I do best offer my team. This team has been really gracious and fun to work with, and so those two things together have really helped me understand how best to work alongside other leaders.
Relationships are key. I'm no longer Maggie, I'm Kai. In our research process and alignment, Lisa, our sponsor, reminded us how important relationships are. Beyond being observers of the benefits of existing relationships of Cruise City, I personally got to see the benefit of relationships and involving others in our process. My dad, actually, who's not a believer, volunteered to be our editor for a proposal. And being a part of that process has been significant in actually helping him understand the organization, has brought greater credibility for our organization with him, helped him to feel like he had something to offer to me, and got him excited about something I was working on. There's great benefit in leading with relationships, and I hope to incorporate that more.
In the last 6 months, I've said the words align and stakeholders so many times. Through this process, I learned that alignment is key in moving forward. When our team started creating solutions during our 6 months, we needed consistent alignment of the stakeholders to move forward. And as a campus staff worker, I tell my staff and my student leaders to consistently cast vision. But I think casting vision along with alignment is key. When important people are not aligned, this can really hold us back and keep us from moving as fast as we want to move.
For me, I think the big piece that I learned was just that God brought me into a place where I had to admit my inability to accomplish everything that was before me. And so in that, being humbled really allowed me to lay things at God's feet, to trust in what He wanted to accomplish, and to believe that He would provide what was needed to accomplish the end goal. The second piece that just kind of more practical, how do I live this out, is as we got close to the end of our time, our decision-making process broke down a little bit in the flow, and I didn't tell you guys I was going to say this, sorry. But I think having clear outcomes of what it is that we're going to accomplish, and then making sure in every piece that we are getting the decisions that we need to accomplish those outcomes is going to be helpful understanding and filling that out in the future. So.
Bob took that from me because he knows that he doesn't know what I'm going to say next. So I think that I just learned so much, but one of the things is this team has been so gracious to me. And like all of us are busy. I have 4 kids. I'm an elder of the church. I lead a team. You name it. My kid's sick in the hospital. But capacity has stretched me. Being a part of this has stretched me in ways that I just thought, man, I could cry right now. And I've had to admit that to my own team, which has been different because they feel like, this is nice to see you vulnerable like this, my team at UW. And so it's just forced me to be a leader that understands that people have capacity challenges. And this has forced me to go to a place where I've met my capacity challenge and wanted to quit. But and then I think the other thing is just the need to trust the team. I can work so independently a lot of times, and I lead a large staff team, but I'm learning that I need to depend on the team. And then I feel like part of working with Cruise City is I feel like I am Cruise City, even though I'm campus, I am Cruise City. So anyways, this will transition us right into our Q&A time. Question?
Good job, guys. So Ginny would know if this information has changed in the last 3 years, but currently we heard earlier that there's 15,000 students graduating from Crew each year, and our winter conferences typically average about 8,000, and they skew on the freshman and sophomore side. So I was just wondering if you're in your research, if you had recommendations for campus staff to help implement this in ways that are outside of winter conference in the everyday work of ministry.
Yeah, I think as we think about winter conference, we realize that it is a portion of the students that are involved, but almost every single campus staff attends winter conference at some point. And so being able to help cast the vision for what Crew City is and what they have to offer to students, especially as they transition off of campus into the city, I think that's the key piece of the winter conference. It helps actually connect with the staff so that they can help students connect with what God's calling them into in their workplace or connecting with the local church.
So thank you guys for all your hard work. It's kind of funny to sit here as a city person and on the other side of the same stuff that we worked on, so it's really cool. So I'm interested in your Click It feature, and I'm wondering like specifics of how is it going to be implemented? Do you have a timeline? And what's like on the city side of things, who's kind of, like have you talked a little bit about what does that implementation look like on the city side as well?
Yeah, we kept that fairly broad as thinking of if this is a simple place, a connection point, so a city connection point, it can be used in a lot of different contexts. And even right now, there is a connect button on the city community page, but there's a lot of questions, and Bob signed up for it several weeks ago and has not heard back anything. And so when we look at that, it's like, how do you make a quick, that's why we said 24 to 48 hours, wherever that is placed, whether it's in an event registration or on the site, there's going to be some that's self-directed, but how do we get it in front of people to make it as seamless as possible and as easy to access that there would be quick turnaround relationally. So that's why we left that open as far as recommending this is what's needed, where you put it, and how you partner with other places, places in the ministry to actually implement it is a little more open.
Yeah, just to add to that, it seems like a pretty natural fit that the city transition liaison would be the person in that city responsible for making sure that anybody that connects with that technology in whatever form would be interacted with on a personal level. So.
So you had a chance to listen to the presentation on the campus project this morning, and I appreciate the suggestions that you're making. What do you think would be, if you could only do one thing that came out of both of those proposals, what would you implement and why?
I think one piece, listening to their proposal presentation, would be for greater collaboration between city and campus. We see this as working together, and like Tom said earlier, campus wins when city wins when campus wins. So we really see both of these projects working together seamlessly. I think a piece that they definitely recommended in their proposal was a transition place. And so if we as city and campus can link together and really flesh that out, we really see that that could be a great win for both organizations.
And it doesn't have to be staff. It could be volunteers within the city because we have so many volunteers. Donors, I don't think, want to just write a check. I think they want to give their expertise. And I think there's so many donors that represent from this room, just our own personal supporters, and that would be able to be a part of this. So. 'Cause, 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 'cause,
wondering, I'm one of the staff that's not as familiar with city, and I guess I'm just wondering what you see as the difference in the experience that somebody would have moving into city compared to what their experience might be like on campus in sort of the ideal future. Like what would their interaction with staff or peers or their own leadership development look like?
Yeah, I think it could potentially be a lot broader and maybe even to the area that they want to be a part of. I just keep thinking, I could say, hey, they want to be a part of human trafficking. I mean, part of fighting the human trafficking. Well, we would have resources in whatever city, whatever city you want to be in.
The city doesn't do human trafficking.
But they can point to the resources that they know. How we can fight that. And so I just think there's the specialty, it's just broader. And I think the reality is it's for 40, 50, 60 years of their life.
Yeah, I think to that, to partly answer your question, we alluded to a little bit, I mean, thinking of it more